podcast about understanding counseling and how it works in everyday life. In this episode, we'll explore what boundaries actually are, using everyday situations people recognize long before they ever talk about them in therapy. Most people think of boundaries as something you say, a limit you set, a line you draw. In everyday life, boundaries usually show up much earlier than that. They show up as a feeling. You feel tired sooner than you expect. You feel irritated without knowing why. You feel pulled to respond even when you do not want to. You feel responsible for things that do not quite belong to you. Those experiences are often the first signs of a boundary being stretched. Boundaries are not primarily about other people. They are about how much you can give, tolerate, or hold without becoming emotionally unsettled. They describe where your capacity begins and ends at any given time. Think about energy. Everyone has a sense, even if it is vague, of how much energy they have available. When energy is respected, people tend to feel steady. When it is repeatedly exceeded, people often feel drained, resentful, or detached. Have you noticed how your patience changes when you are already tired? I sure have. Now think about closeness. Boundaries also regulate how close feels comfortable. Too much closeness can feel overwhelming. Too much distance can feel unsettling. Most people spend a lot of time adjusting this without naming it, pulling back slightly, reaching out a bit more, deciding when to engage and when to stay quiet. These adjustments are boundaries in action. Responsibility is another place boundaries quietly operate. Many people carry emotional responsibility that was never clearly agreed. They manage other people's moods, they anticipate needs, they smooth things over. Over time, this can create a sense of pressure that has no obvious source. Do you ever feel responsible for how situations turn out, even when they are not fully in your control? Boundaries are what allow emotional stability to be maintained across these areas. When boundaries are clear enough, people can stay engaged without becoming depleted. When boundaries are unclear, emotional regulation has to work harder to compensate. This is why boundary difficulties often show up as emotional overwhelm rather than obvious conflict. This links directly to what we explored in the previous episodes around emotional regulation. When regulation breaks down repeatedly, it is often because limits are being crossed quietly and consistently. The system signals this through irritability, withdrawal, or exhaustion long before words appear. Boundaries are also not fixed. They shift depending on stress, context, and relationship. What feels manageable one week may not feel so manageable the next week. This does not mean boundaries are inconsistent. It means capacity changes. Recognizing that change is part of maintaining stability. In counseling, boundaries are explored not as rules to enforce, but as patterns to notice. Counseling helps people recognize when they are consistently giving more than they can sustain, or holding more responsibility than what belongs to them. It brings language to experiences that were previously only felt. Importantly, boundaries are not about becoming rigid or unavailable. Healthy boundaries allow connection without collapse. They make closeness possible because they prevent overload. Without boundaries, people often oscillate between overgiving and withdrawing, not because they want to, but because capacity has been exceeded. You can see this in everyday relationships. Someone who is always available may suddenly go quiet. Someone who avoids asking for help may feel unseen. These shifts are often boundary responses rather than personality traits. Understanding boundaries in this way reframes them from something you do to others into something that supports emotional stability. Boundaries protect your ability to stay present, responsive, and engaged over time. In the next episode, we'll explore how boundary difficulties often show up in relationships, particularly around closeness, distance, and emotional responsibility, and why these patterns repeat even when intentions are good. That's the scope of this episode. Each episode focuses on one specific theme, and this was it. We'll leave it there for now and move on in the next episode.